Welcome to the California Maverick, a channel fighting for a free and sane California. Okay, so the idea of California splitting isn't new. It has persisted since the 1940s, and over 200 proposals have been received since its statehood in 1850. Now it's resurfaced again through a joint resolution from Republican Assembly Minority Leader James Gallagher, announced at a press conference on Wednesday. I'll tell you why it's a good idea, why it's a bad idea, and why it has no chance of succeeding.
Today, it's the deadline for the state's Attorney General to weigh in on California Democrats' attempts to redraw the Golden State's congressional maps.
Also this morning, a California Republican leader is ramping up rhetoric even higher as he's set to propose splitting the state in two.
There's this map that's creating another headline. That's because State Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher set to unveil a plan this morning to literally redraw and split California into two separate states. Under his plan, more than 10 million Californians in most of Northern California, but not including Sacramento, Solano, nor Yolo counties, would be part of a new inland state. Now, back out here live, the idea of splitting California into two, not new, and has repeatedly failed efforts in the past. Regardless, a news conference from State Republican leader James Gallagher set for 10 o'clock this morning here at the state capitol to once again float that idea of splitting California.
The two-state resolution seeks to form a new state from 35 inland counties, arguing they've been neglected by Governor Gavin Newsom and the Democrat supermajority up in Sacramento, especially after redistricting maps that diminished representation in northern and central valley areas. Personally, I think it's a good idea, but not for the reasons you might expect. This proposal highlights the divide between inland regions and the coastal elites. Inland counties, though less populated than the Bay Area or Los Angeles, cover vast territories that supply California's food, water, dams, and reservoirs. They also have a significant amount of the state's infrastructure that California uses to import a majority of the water from the North and Colorado River. These inland areas from the Central Valley, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Imperial counties include a large share of independents, not just Republicans. Democrats and their voters always claim it's this partisan line and divide between Republicans and Democrats. But the reality is these Democrats in Sacramento silence 20 to 30% of the voices in California who are independents, who at times actually align with them. This proposal exposes how coastal Democrat policies disenfranchise a lot of the state. Inland counties house roughly 11 million people, making this new state the 7th largest in the United States, giving it 13 seats in the House of Representatives, 2 senators, which means 15 electoral votes, and most of California's agriculture. These coastal areas are heavily dependent on the agriculture of the inland counties. Milk, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, poultry, beef, all of it. Without the inland counties, there's no food for these coastal cities. Gavin Newsom and Democrats like to brag how they're the #1 agricultural state in the union, which is so ironic because while they tout and brag about their agriculture and how much they care about the farmers and the rural communities, they enact policies that hurt them, that enable droughts and restrict land management to prevent brush fires. With all that said, Democrats, they won't surrender the agriculture they boast about because they like virtue signaling support for these areas while neglecting them and taking advantage of them. And I don't know what's worse, the Democrat politicians who enact these policies that burden farmers and rural communities, or the Democrat voters who also talk about California being this agricultural superpower in the United States, but also label them or anybody who believes differently from them as right-wing extremists, while simultaneously relying on them for everything and then bragging about them at the same time. Explain that to me.
This impacts water rights, the price of fuel, firefighting resources, the battle between ranchers and environmentalists, and so on.
When you strip us of all representation and you deprive us of our voice, then we have no other option but to move forward in a civil way and pursue our own dreams. That is the American way.
As much as I think of this as a cool idea, it's actually a really bad idea. First, this split excludes Orange County, which is a swing area. In 2024, it leaned slightly blue for Kamala. However, it consistently elects Republican representatives to the state legislature and federal level. San Diego is a moderate right-leaning area. So the new state might actually emerge as purple rather than a solid red, especially since there are so many independents, which would kind of backfire on these conservatives and Republicans in the state. And it also debunks this common narrative going around that Republicans are 40% of Californians. Unfortunately, the reality is voter registration shows that 45% of Californians are Democrats, at least registered, 25 to 26 are Republicans, and 22 to 24 are independents. So a lot of these independents are in the inland areas and voted for the current president, which shows that the shift in California is trending rightward, which would also explain why the Democrat supermajority and Gavin Newsom want to push this redistricting. They see the writing on the wall. They know California and the entire country is trending rightward, and they want to keep their power and supermajority in California permanently. Another reason why this is a bad idea is the process to make it happen. First, it has to go through the California State Legislature, which is a Democrat supermajority, as I mentioned. It needs to get approved by a 2/3 majority, which is impossible. These Democrats don't want to give up all that power and the revenue and all those electoral votes. That's 15 electoral votes going to this new state. There's no way that's going to happen. Then it would have to go to Congress through the House and the Senate. Then it would have to go through a ballot measure and it would have to be approved by the California voters. Once it gets through all that, it'll have to be signed by the president. I think he might sign it, but personally, I think he'd rather prefer keeping California intact. Also, the logistics involving this whole split. As Gavin Newsom likes to constantly brag about, and all these Democrats, fourth largest economy in the world, California's economy is huge. There's infrastructure, energy, water, debt, bonds. How will California, how are we going to be able to divide all that up? There's no way. The last thing is, historically, there have been a lot of efforts, as I mentioned before, for splitting California. The state of Jefferson movement began in 1941, which encompassed Northern California, then later rural Oregon areas outside of Portland and Eugene. The Six Californias initiative reached the ballot on 2018, but lost. My favorite was the three-way split. I think that's really the best option out of all of them, excluding the northern area that should have San Francisco and the Bay Area split and attached to LA. The last one was the Greater Idaho concept that was brought up in 2021 and gained a little bit of steam, which merged the state of Jefferson minus Humboldt County, the rural regions of Oregon, excluding Portland and Eugene, and all of Idaho. But that's even more of a pipe dream because that requires approval from 3 different legislatures, Congress, 3 different ballot initiatives in 3 different states, and the president's signature. But it's a really interesting concept to think about. Lastly, I think the 2-state split, even though Assemblymember Gallagher means well, it's a distraction. It's taking focus and attention away from the efforts currently in front of us to defeat Gavin Newsom's redistricting scheme in Proposition 50. So instead of focusing on splitting California, because that's a pipe dream that will never happen, recalling Governor Newsom for a second or third time, because by the time the recall goes through again, he's going to be out of office. So it's a waste of time, money, and effort. The real focus should be on a ballot initiative that's coming where Assemblymember Carl DeMaio is collecting signatures for voter identification. That will be a huge turning point in California. And let's not forget that the current presidential administration is pushing to remove illegal immigrants. That's going to really hurt this redistricting scheme because California is going to have to redraw the maps again, and it's going to reduce California's electoral votes. It's going to have a significant shift towards the right in California once we implement voter ID. Anyway, I have the voter initiative linked to the first comment below, and I'll also have the No on Prop 50 links in my description. If you like this video, leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.